Riverdale was never a place people dreamed of escaping from, until recently the main street with its shabby signs, boarded up windows of once thriving shops, and people with tired faces outside the employment center. The camera slowly rises above the town, showing the contrast between the dilapidated residential neighborhoods and the massive complex of the semi-abandoned River Steel metallurgical plant, which once provided jobs for half the town. The gray concrete walls of the Riverdale Correctional Facility rise on the outskirts of the city, like a misplaced monument to former prosperity. Built in the 1980s, during the region's economic boom, it was designed to hold 400 inmates, but now houses about 600. Overcrowding is a constant problem, as are staff shortages, low wages, and outdated equipment. "It's ironic," comments former city mayor Harold Simmons, sitting in his modest real estate office. "The prison was built as an additional source of jobs, and now it's pretty much the only thing keeping Riverdale from disappearing completely. 30% of the working population works either in the prison itself or in related services, from food delivery to services for inmates' families who come for visits." The camera slowly moves down the corridor of Block C, one of the prison's 4 residential blocks. Metal doors, concrete floors, dim lighting. The walls, once painted light green, are now darkened by time and covered with countless layers of graffiti, which prison staff periodically paint over. Prisoners gather in groups, talking, playing cards, or just sitting, staring into space with that particular expression of detachment that comes to people whose time no longer belongs to them. "I've been here for 15 years, and I can say one thing. Prison is like a small town with its own laws, hierarchy, and rules for survival," says Officer Carla Ramirez, an experienced guard. Her face, wrinkled around the eyes, betrays her fatigue, but her gaze remains alert and lively. On her uniform is a worn badge with the number 437, and on her belt is a radio, a stun gun, and a bunch of keys. Some adapt, others break. Michael Dawson is one of those who adapted. A man of medium height appears in the frame, wearing a blue prison uniform with a faded number on his chest. Michael Dawson is sitting in the prison library, one of the few quiet places in Riverdale Correctional Facility, leafing through a well-worn copy of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. At 38, he looks older, the result of a hard life before and during his incarceration. He is gaunt, with the muscular arms of a former construction worker and a deep scar across his left eyebrow, which he received during a fight in his first month in prison. 4 years of his 12-year sentence for armed robbery are already behind him. "Michael keeps to himself," comments Dr. Alex Stein, a prison psychologist, sitting in his small office with barred windows and diplomas on the walls. He works at the prison only 2 days a week, combining this work with a private practice in the city. He rarely participates in group therapy and is taciturn in individual sessions, but he's not aggressive and follows the rules. He's an excellent worker in the prison library, cataloging books and helping other inmates choose literature. As far as I can tell, he's just trying to serve his time without any trouble. Prison records show that Michael has received only 3 disciplinary infractions in 4 years of incarceration, all in his first year. There have been no violations since then. He rarely receives visitors, only 1 visit in the last 2 years from his sister, who lives in Pittsburgh. Letters are infrequent. However, Michael has a reputation among inmates as someone to avoid, not because he is violent, but because he is unpredictable. 2 years ago, he severely beat an inmate who tried to steal his personal belongings, photographs and letters from his bedside table. The attacker spent 3 weeks in the prison infirmary. Since then, Michael has been respected and shunned. "New transports arrive on Tuesdays," explains prison warden Frank Holden, a large man with a military bearing, short gray hair, and perpetually furrowed brows. His office is decorated with an American flag, photos of state politicians, and numerous certificates from prison management courses. On average, we receive between 5 and 10 new inmates every week. It's a routine procedure: registration, medical examination, familiarization with the rules, and assignment to blocks. Holden is proud that under his leadership, Riverdale Correctional has one of the lowest rates of inmate violence in the state. Critics, however, argue that this is not the result of effective management, but rather the systematic cover-up of incidents to avoid attracting the attention of commissions and losing funding. Tuesday, October 7th, a rainy, gray morning. A battered bus with bars on the windows pulls up at the prison gate. 6 men in handcuffs and orange jumpsuits are let out. They squint in the bright spotlight, despite the cloudy day. After hours on a bus with tinted windows, even the gray sky seems blinding. Among the new arrivals is Jamie Warren, a thin young man with a confused look and a faint bruise under his right eye. At 26, he is in prison for the first time. According to the documents, he was arrested during a large-scale operation to combat drug trafficking in a university town 80 miles from here. He had no previous convictions. Jamie Warren, convicted of distributing Class B drugs, 8 years, reads the officer taking his documents. Block C, cell 224. The processing takes several hours. Jamie undergoes a humiliating strip search, receives a prison uniform, blue pants and a shirt with a number on it, a mattress, a pillow, a set of bedding, and personal hygiene items. He is photographed from the front and in profile. His fingerprints are taken, and he undergoes a medical examination. The doctor notes bruises on his ribs, the result of beatings during his arrest, and prescribes painkillers for a week. "The first day is always the hardest," says Officer Ramirez, escorting Jamie down a long corridor to Block C. Her footsteps echo off the concrete floor, creating a rhythm that Jamie is not yet used to, but which will become the soundtrack of his life for the next 8 years. Keep your eyes open, but avoid direct eye contact. Don't ask unnecessary questions. Don't accept gifts. And whatever happens, don't show fear. Fear here is like blood in water to sharks. Cell 224 was a small room measuring approximately 15 by 12 feet with 2 bunk beds, a small metal table bolted to the floor, 4 stools, and a toilet with a sink, separated from the rest of the cell by only a low partition. 3 places were already taken. The cellmates are men of various ages. Ray, 55, credit card fraud, 4 years. Vince, 31, aggravated assault, 9 years. And Tony, 42, armed robbery, 12 years. They eye the newcomer appraisingly. "Hope you don't snore," Vince says, pointing to the empty lower bunk opposite his. His arms are covered in tattoos, some of which were clearly done in prison. "And don't cry at night like the last guy. You know what happened to him? He asked to be transferred to another block. Now he's in B4. They say they gave him a warmer welcome there." Jamie nods silently and begins to settle into his space, covering the mattress with the bedding he was given and placing his toiletries on a small shelf by the sink. His hands tremble treacherously, and he sees Tony and Vince exchange glances when they notice. Ray, the oldest, seems engrossed in a book and pays no attention to his new neighbor. Rule number 1, don't touch anything without permission. Rule number 2, don't ask questions about why anyone is here. Rule number 3, keep your space clean. You'll figure out the rest as you go along. In the evening, in the common dining hall, a spacious room with long metal tables and uncomfortable benches, Jamie sits alone, barely touching his food. A gray mass that is supposed to be mashed potatoes, a suspicious piece of meat, and overcooked vegetables. Dozens of eyes study him, assessing him, determining his place in the prison hierarchy. "Hey, handsome, want to join us?" A group of prisoners at a distant table calls out to him. Laughter, obscene gestures. One of them, a large man with a shaved head, makes a gesture with his hand near his mouth, unambiguously hinting at a sexual act. Jamie lowers his eyes, ignoring the invitation, feeling his face flush. His heart is pounding so hard that it seems everyone in the dining hall must be able to hear it. Suddenly, an unfamiliar prisoner sits down next to him. The same man from the library, Michael Dawson. He puts his tray on the table and starts eating without saying a word. "Don't react," he says quietly after a minute without looking at Jamie. "They're testing you. A couple of weeks will pass and they'll find a new victim. Just don't stay alone, especially in the showers or laundry room." "Why are you helping me?" Jamie asks, surprised by the unexpected support. Michael shrugs. "Because someone helped me once." He looks up, and Jamie sees the color of his eyes for the first time. Gray-blue, like the cloudy sky over Riverdale. "And because you don't look like someone who deserves what they want to do to you." The group of inmates who had been calling out to Jamie watches them, but now with less enthusiasm. Michael's reputation is apparently serious enough to make them think twice. In the days that follow, Jamie tries to adapt to the prison routine. Wake up at 6 a.m., breakfast at 6:30, work in the kitchen from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., a temporary assignment until the administration decides where to assign him permanently. Lunch, free time that can be spent in the yard for walks, in the library, or in the common room with a TV, dinner, a little more free time, and lights out at 10 p.m. He sticks close to Michael, who silently provides him with protection. "Interesting pair," Officer Ramirez remarks, watching them in the courtyard, where Michael and Jamie are sitting on a bench talking. More accurately, Jamie is doing most of the talking, while Michael listens, occasionally nodding or interjecting with short comments. "I've never seen Dawson take anyone under his wing. He's always been a loner." "Maybe he's getting old and wants some company," her colleague, Officer Martinez, replies indifferently, tapping his baton on the railing of the observation deck. "Or maybe he's got his eye on the kid. You know how it is." Ramirez shoots her colleague a disapproving look, but says nothing. She notices what the others don't, how Michael's gaze changes when he looks at Jamie, how he stands a little closer than necessary, how he watches his every move, especially when other inmates are nearby. At the end of Jamie's second week in prison, an incident occurs. In the shower, where he went later than usual because of an extra shift in the kitchen, 3 inmates surround him when Michael isn't around. One of them is the same shaven-headed man from the dining hall. "You think Dawson will always be there to protect you?" he hisses, pressing Jamie against the damp tile wall. He smells of sweat and cheap prison soap. "Sooner or later you'll be alone, and then we'll continue our acquaintance." An officer walks past the showers and the attackers retreat, but the message is clear. The danger is real and constant. Jamie finishes his shower, his legs trembling, constantly looking over his shoulder and covering his body with his hands. That evening, back in his cell, Jamie finds a small bundle under his pillow. Unwrapping it, he discovers a homemade knife, a sharpened metal plate with a cloth-wrapped handle. He looks around fearfully, but there is no one in the cell. "Learn to defend yourself," says Michael, appearing in the doorway. He stands leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed over his chest. "I won't always be around." "Where did you get this?" whispers Jamie, quickly hiding the knife back under his pillow. "The less you know, the better you sleep," Michael replies, stepping into the cell. "Just keep it on you. Most people are satisfied knowing you have something to defend yourself with." Their eyes meet, and for a moment there is an understanding between them that goes beyond simple patronage. Something deeper, more personal. Jamie nods fearfully, accepting the gift and what it symbolizes, a budding bond, not yet named, but already palpable. "Thank you," he says quietly, "for everything." Michael smiles slightly, perhaps for the first time since Jamie met him. "You're welcome. Just be careful." He leaves as suddenly as he appeared, leaving Jamie with a knife under his pillow and a growing awareness that his life at Riverdale Correctional will be defined not only by written rules, but also by unspoken commitments, invisible connections, and the choices he will have to make. In the first chapter, we were introduced to the town of Riverdale and its county jail, Riverdale Correctional Facility. Michael Dawson, a 38-year-old inmate serving a 12-year sentence for armed robbery, takes the newly arrived Jamie Warren, a 26-year-old former student sentenced to 8 years for drug distribution, under his wing. Jamie faces threats from other inmates, but Michael protects him and even gives him a homemade knife for self-defense. A special bond begins to form between them. Story. It's November. The prison yard is covered with rusty leaves, which the inmates clean up every day as part of their chores. During his month in prison, Jamie has changed noticeably. He is more confident, less startled by loud noises, and has learned to look people in the eye without showing fear. Thanks to Michael's protection, most of the inmates leave him alone. "It's amazing how quickly some people adapt," Dr. Stein remarks, as he reviews the records in his office. Warren has integrated into the community much faster than most newcomers with his profile. The question is, what price is he paying for this adaptation? Jamie's daily routine has changed. After 2 weeks in the kitchen, he was transferred to the library on the recommendation of Michael, who has been working there as a library assistant for several years. Now they spend most of their days together, sorting books, helping other inmates choose literature, and sometimes teaching educational courses for those preparing to earn their GED. "Did you study literature?" Michael asks, watching Jamie skillfully catalog a new batch of books received from a charity organization. 2 years in college, Jamie replies without looking up. "Then I switched to business administration. My father insisted." "And how did you go from business administration to drug dealing?" Michael asks, broaching the subject of Jamie's criminal past for the first time. Jamie freezes for a second, then continues arranging the books. Classic story: student debt, the desire for easy money, bad company. Started selling weed to my roommates, then someone offered something more serious. He pauses. "Your turn." "Armed robbery? That doesn't sound like you." Michael snorts. "Why? Do you think real robbers are supposed to look a certain way?" "It's just you seem too smart for that." "Smart people do stupid things too," Michael replies after a pause, especially when it comes to protecting those they care about. He doesn't elaborate, and Jamie doesn't ask, sensing that he has invaded territory where he is not yet welcome. Their conversations in the library become a daily ritual. First, they talk about books and authors, then about music, movies, and events outside the prison walls. Gradually, they move on to more personal topics: childhood, dreams, fears. Jamie talks about his family, his strict father, a lawyer, his broken mother, his younger sister, who refused to keep in touch with him after his arrest. Michael shares fragments of his past: a difficult childhood in a working-class neighborhood of Pittsburgh, an alcoholic father, a mother who worked 2 jobs to feed 3 children, his own descent into a life of crime. They move together like satellites around a common axis, Officer Ramirez tells his colleague as they watch Michael and Jamie during lunch. "I've been working here for 15 years and I've seen this before. In this environment, people cling to any connection." "There's going to be trouble," her colleague replies. "There always is." In mid-November, Michael notices that Jamie is hiding something under his mattress, a small notebook that he sometimes writes in before bed. "A diary?" he asks when they are alone in the library. Jamie flinches. "How did you?" "I have eyes," Michael smiles. "Be careful. If they find it, they'll read it." "It's just thoughts, memories. The psychologist advised me to write them down to make it easier to cope with being locked up." "Are you talking to Steen?" Michael's voice sounds wary. "I've been to see him twice. They say it might help me get parole in a couple of years." Michael shakes his head. "Don't trust him too much. Everything you say goes into the reports." A new level of intimacy emerges in their relationship, passing notes. Jamie leaves sheets of paper with quotes from books or his own thoughts among the books Michael has to read. Michael responds in kind, placing his messages in books Jamie recommends for him to read. "Why do you look at me like that sometimes?" Jamie asks in one of the notes. "How exactly?" Michael replies. "Like you see something I don't." "Maybe I do." At the end of November, an episode occurs that changes the dynamics of their relationship. While working in the library, Jamie, standing on a ladder, loses his balance while trying to reach a book on the top shelf. Michael, who happens to be nearby, manages to catch him. For a few moments, they find themselves in each other's arms, unusually close. Their eyes meet, and they both realize that there is something more than just friendship between them. "Thanks," Jamie breathes, making no attempt to pull away. Michael nods, slowly letting him go. "You have to be careful." This moment is noticed by Diego Ortiz, an inmate who works in the periodicals department. His gaze lingers on them a little longer than necessary. That evening, returning to his cell, Jamie finds a piece of paper on his bunk with a crude drawing of a sexual nature and the words "Dawson and his bitch" written underneath. He quickly crumples up the drawing and throws it in the toilet, but a lingering fear remains. Someone is watching them, someone knows. The next day, during their walk, Diego and 2 of his friends approach Jamie while Michael is away talking to another inmate. "How's it going, handsome?" Diego asks, leaning in a little closer than is comfortable. "Library work suits you, huh? Lots of interesting things happen among the bookshelves, right?" Jamie tensed, but tried not to show his fear. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Diego said, glancing back at Michael, who was still talking to someone else. You know, there are people who really don't like people like you, and there are people who could protect you, for a price, of course. I don't need protection, Jamie replies, feeling his hand instinctively reach for the pocket where he keeps his knife. Everyone needs protection, Diego smiles, revealing a metal tooth. Just think about it, and tell Dawson he has good taste. When Michael returns, Jamie tells him about the conversation. Michael's face darkens. Diego works for Benson, he says quietly. Benson controls most of the contraband in C Block. They won't stop at blackmail. What do we do? Michael looks at him for a long moment. Us? So we're us now. Jamie doesn't look away. Aren't we? At that moment, a silent acknowledgement passes between them, an understanding of the true nature of their relationship. Michael nods slightly. We need to be careful, he says. Less time together in public. No notes. No accidental touches. What if that's not enough? Then we'll have to play their game. I have something that might interest Benson more than our secrets. The next day, Dr. Stein calls Jamie in for an unscheduled session. How are you doing? He asks, studying the young man's face closely. Fine, Jamie replies, trying to look calm. The library job is helping. I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time with Dawson, Stein notes in his notebook. It's good that you have a friend, but don't forget that friendship often comes at a price here. Michael is just helping me adjust. Of course, Stein nods. Just remember that my door is always open if you need to talk. About anything. That evening, Michael meets Benson, a large, middle-aged African-American man with an authoritative gaze, in the laundry room, where the cameras haven't been working for several months. Jamie doesn't know what they agreed on, but after that meeting, Diego and his friends keep their distance. Was the price high? Jamie asks when they are finally alone in a far corner of the library. Reasonable, Michael replies, but it's a temporary solution. We need to be smarter. In the last week of November, they finally find an opportunity for their first real moment of privacy in a library storage room that Michael has access to thanks to his position. There, among the dusty boxes of books waiting to be cataloged, they share their first kiss. Cautious, uncertain, full of restrained desire and fear. I've never done this before, Jamie begins. I know, Michael interrupts. We won't rush things. They return to their duties, but something between them has changed irrevocably. Their glances, the accidental touches of their hands above the books, their quiet conversations in the corner of the courtyard, everything takes on new meaning. I've noticed a change in Dawson's behavior, Officer Ramirez reports to Warden Holden at the end of the month. He's become calmer, almost peaceful. Is that a problem? Holden looks up from his papers. Not yet, but changes like that usually precede something. As long as they follow the rules and don't cause any trouble, I don't care what goes on between the inmates, Holden replies. We've got enough to worry about with budget cuts and preparing for the inspection. December brings the first snow and new challenges for the budding relationship. Jamie receives a letter from his sister, his first contact with his family in months. She informs him that their mother is seriously ill and would like to see him. Are you going? Michael asks when Jamie tells him about the letter. If they allow a temporary leave under escort, yes. Jamie looks at Michael with concern. Will this change anything between us? No, Michael shakes his head. But be careful. Don't say anything you shouldn't. About us? About everything. January brings not only record low temperatures, but also palpable tension at Riverdale Correctional Facility. After the Christmas holidays, which most inmates spent without visits from their families, the mood in the prison becomes particularly gloomy. The heating is intermittent and the hot water is often turned off in the showers. Jamie returns from a 3-day furlough to visit his sick mother. He looks haggard, with dark circles under his eyes. How is she? Michael asks in the library. Pancreatic cancer, late stage, Jamie says quietly. The doctors give her 3 to 6 months. Michael silently puts his hand on Jamie's shoulder, a fleeting touch, but it conveys more support than any words could express. You know what the worst part is? Jamie continues. She didn't want to see me. It was my sister who insisted. Mom spent less than an hour with me and stared out the window the whole time, as if she couldn't bear to see me like this. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Stein. "Warren, how did the visit go?" he asks. "Fine," Jamie replies, instantly straightening up and taking a step away from Michael. "We can talk about it in tomorrow's session," Stein suggests, at 10 o'clock. The next day's session is anything but a formality. "How are your relationships with the other inmates?" the psychologist asks. "With Dawson, for example?" "Fine. We work together in the library." Stein makes a note in his notebook. "Do you know about his past? Why is he here?" "Armed robbery. It's no secret." "Any details?" Jamie hesitates. "We don't discuss the details of our crimes. Dawson robbed a pharmaceutical warehouse with 2 accomplices, one of whom was his younger brother. The security guard was seriously injured. Michael took all the blame to protect his brother." "Why are you telling me this?" Jamie asks. "So you understand that Michael is a man who can be dangerously loyal, and also because before you, he had a similar special connection with another inmate, who was transferred to another prison 2 years ago under mysterious circumstances." Back in the library, Jamie can't concentrate on his work. When he and Michael are alone, he decides to ask, "Who was here before me? Stein mentioned a prisoner who was transferred." Michael's face darkens. "Stein had no right to tell you that." "So it's true?" "His name was Eric. He was here 3 years ago, a young guy, scared like you were at first. I helped him." "Like me?" "Not exactly." Michael finally looks at Jamie. "With you it's different. Deeper." "What happened to him?" "Officially, he was transferred at his family's request. Unofficially, he had problems with Benson. Serious problems. At night in his cell, when his cellmates are asleep, Jamie takes out his diary. On the last page, he finds a note. Dawson isn't who he says he is. Ask him about Eric Knightley. In the morning, Jamie sees Michael talking to Benson in the far corner of the dining room, a tense conversation that ends with Michael handing Benson a small package. "What did you give Benson?" Jamie asks later in the library. "None of your business," Michael replies sharply but softens. "Sorry, it's part of our agreement." "Is it drugs?" "No, it's information, an exchange of services." In mid-January, the situation escalates. During a search of Block C, officers find a cell phone in a hiding place near the laundry room where Benson regularly works. An investigation begins. "That's strange," says Officer Ramirez. "Benson is too smart to keep a phone in such an obvious place. Maybe someone wanted to frame him?" At the same time, Jamie notices that other inmates are starting to treat him with newfound interest. In the shower, he hears conversations about him and Michael and sees obscene drawings on the toilet walls. "It won't stop," his cellmate Vince tells him. "They don't like relationships like that here, especially when one person is clearly subordinate to the other." "What are you talking about?" "Everyone knows you're Dawson's bitch. No offense," he adds. "And sooner or later, someone's going to test how far Dawson will go to protect you." The next day, Jamie finds his bunk overturned and the contents of his nightstand scattered around. His diary is gone. "My diary is gone," he tells Michael. "I wrote in it about us." "Damn." Michael runs his hand through his hair. "Now they have proof. This changes everything. What should we do?" "I need to talk to Benson and the block supervisor." That evening, Jamie is summoned to the office of the Block C supervisor, Mr. Pearson. "Warren, it has come to my attention that you have been involved in some rule violations," Pearson says. "An unauthorized relationship with another inmate." "I don't understand what you're talking about." "I'm considering transferring you to Block D. There's a place in an educational program there that's more suited to your profile." Block D is the furthest block from Block C with a different schedule and minimal opportunity to interact with inmates from other blocks. "Sir, I've adjusted well to Block C. My job in the library." "The decision has been made," Pearson interrupts. "The transfer will take place on Monday." As he leaves the office, Jamie notices Diego grinning from around the corner of the hallway. He makes an obscene gesture. Michael is not in the library, and Jamie cannot find him in the dining hall or during the evening check. Returning to his cell, he finds a note under his pillow. "The meeting with Benson didn't work out. He wants more than I can give. Go to the shower room tomorrow at 6:30. We need to talk without witnesses. At exactly 6:30 in the morning, Jamie heads for the shower room, clutching a homemade knife tightly in his pocket. In the hallway, he runs into Officer Ramirez. "Warren, where are you going so early?" she asks. "To the shower room, ma'am. Double shift in the library today." Ramirez looks at him closely. "Be careful. Tensions have been running high in the block lately. The shower room is empty and filled with steam." Jamie looks around, but Michael is nowhere to be seen. Instead, Diego and two of his friends appear. "Look who's here, Dawson's lover, right on schedule," Diego smirks. "How convenient." Jamie realizes that the note was a trap. "Where's Michael?" "Oh, he's busy sorting things out with Benson. You see, your diary turned out to be very informative, not just about your relationship, but some details of your deal with Benson." Jamie backs toward the door, but the third inmate blocks it. "What do you want?" "First, some fun." Diego takes a step forward. "Then we'll see how much Dawson cares about your safety." At that moment, footsteps are heard outside the door, and Officer Ramirez's voice calls out, "Everything okay in there?" Diego freezes. "You're lucky, but you're still being transferred to Block D. Dawson won't be able to protect you there." When Diego and his henchmen leave, Jamie thanks the officer, realizing that she came specifically to check on him. "You're welcome," Ramirez replies, "but be prepared for the transfer, and be aware that there are dangers outside Block C." That same day, Jamie finally meets Michael in the library. "Did you send me a note about meeting in the shower?" he asks. Michael frowns. "No, I didn't send anything." "Then it was a trap. Diego and his friends were waiting for me there." "Damn Benson!" Michael punches the bookshelf. "He's using Diego to pressure us both." "What does he really want?" Michael hesitates. "I've been getting information for him from the administration office. I have access there when I return books for the staff, but now he wants me to smuggle drugs out of the visiting room." "And you agreed?" "I have no choice. If I refuse, he'll tell the administration about us. And not just that." "What else?" Jamie feels fear tighten his throat. "What happened to Eric?" Michael replies quietly, not looking at him. "What happened to him, Michael?" "He wasn't transferred. He's dead." Michael finally looks up. And Benson knows who's responsible. February 1st, Monday. The day of Jamie's transfer to Block D. From early morning, there is an unusual tension in the prison. Too many officers in the corridors. Too many prying eyes. Rumors of a planned, large-scale search spread quickly. Jamie gathers his meager belongings. A few books, toiletries, letters from his sister. His diary is nowhere to be found. His cellmates watch silently. "Good luck in Block D," Vince finally says. "It's a different world over there." Jamie uses the time he has left before the transfer to walk around Block C. He hopes to find Michael, but he is nowhere to be found in the common room, the dining hall, or the library. Last night they agreed to meet before lights out, but Michael never showed up. "Inmate Warren, follow me." Officer Martinez appears in the library doorway. Jamie takes one last look at the bookshelves and follows the officer. They walk down a long corridor connecting the administrative building to the living quarters. Suddenly, the officer stops at a service staircase. "5 minutes, he says, pointing to the door. "No thanks." Behind the door, Jamie finds Michael. He looks exhausted, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I thought I wouldn't make it," Michael says, hugging Jamie tightly. Martinez agreed to help at the last minute. "What's going on, Michael? Where were you yesterday?" "Benson, he wants me to do it today during your transfer when the officer's attention is diverted." "Do what?" "Pick up a package during his brother's visit and smuggle it into the prison. Heroin, most likely." "Don't do it. If you get caught. If I don't, he'll tell them about us." "And what happened to Eric?" "What exactly happened to Eric, Michael? You have to tell me." Michael sighs heavily. "Eric was like you, young, scared, in need of protection. I helped him, and over time we developed something more. Benson noticed and started blackmailing us, demanding that Eric do certain things for him." "What kind of things?" "Sexual things, for him and his associates." Jamie feels a chill run down his spine. "And you let him?" "Of course not. I was trying to protect him. We planned to go to the administration. We had evidence against Benson, but someone warned him. The night before we were supposed to talk to the warden, Eric was found in the shower. Officially, it was suicide. You think it was Benson? I know it was him, and he knows I know. Michael looks Jamie straight in the eye, and now he's threatening to do the same thing to you. Time. Officer Martinez's voice interrupts their conversation. Warren, it's time. Don't do it, Michael, Jamie manages to say. Find another way. Michael just shakes his head with a sad smile. Be careful in D Block. Don't trust anyone. D Block greets Jamie with the hollow echo of footsteps on the metal floor and the smell of fresh paint. Cell 312 is his new home for an indefinite period of time. His 2 roommates are already there. Leon, a muscular Latino with tattoos, and Parker, a skinny middle-aged African-American who used to be an accountant. New guy from C Block? Leon asks. Heard there's going to be a cleanup today. A cleanup? A drug raid. Someone tipped off the administration about a big shipment. Jamie feels his stomach tighten with anxiety. If Michael tries to smuggle drugs in today at 11:30 a.m., during lunch in the D Block cafeteria, an alarm sounds, a piercing siren. The inmates are immediately returned to their cells for an unscheduled inspection. What's going on? Jamie asks an officer passing by. Incident in Block C, he replies curtly. Everyone stay in their cells until further notice. The next few hours are torture for Jamie. No information, only rumors, a fight, an escape attempt, an attack on an officer. It is only in the evening, when the state of emergency is partially lifted, that Jamie learns the truth. The TV in the common room shows local news. Emergency at Riverdale County Jail. 1 inmate dead, 2 in critical condition. They say it's Benson, Parker says, sitting down next to Jamie. He was stabbed in the visiting room, right in front of his brother. Who did it? I don't know, but I heard it was some librarian from C Block. He attacked him with a sharpened object and stabbed him several times before the officers subdued him. Jamie's vision begins to spin. He clings to the edge of the table to keep from falling. That evening, all the inmates are gathered in the dining hall. Warden Holden looks gloomier than usual. Today, a tragic event occurred in our institution, he says. Inmate Richard Benson was killed during a visit with his brother. Starting tomorrow, we will be implementing a strict regime. All privileges are revoked. Visits will be through glass only. A murmur of discontent ripples through the crowd, but it quickly dies down. The perpetrator of this crime will be punished to the full extent of the law, Holden continues. Inmate Michael Dawson has been transferred to solitary confinement in Block A, pending charges of first-degree murder. Jamie's heart skips a beat. So it's true. Michael really did kill Benson. For him? After the meeting, Jamie notices Dr. Stein watching the inmates. Their eyes meet, and the psychologist nods slightly, as if confirming Jamie's worst fears. The next morning, Jamie is summoned to the head of Block D, Mr. Foster. Warren, I have a few questions for you about yesterday's incident, he says. I'm interested in your relationship with inmate Dawson. We worked together in the C Block library. And that's all? According to my information, you were transferred to D Block specifically because of your inappropriate relationship with Dawson. I was not given a reason for the transfer. Are you aware of any conflict between Dawson and Benson? No, sir. That's strange. Your name came up in conversations between them that were overheard by other inmates. Jamie remains silent, unsure of how to respond. Dawson refuses to talk about his motives. Foster continues. But if he killed Benson because of you, because of threats you made against him, that could mitigate his sentence. Emotional breakdown, temporary insanity, you understand? I need to think about it, Jamie finally says. Of course, but don't take too long. Charges will be filed within 48 hours. As he leaves the office, Jamie runs into Officer Ramirez. She pulls him aside. How are you holding up? She asks quietly. Fine, Jamie replies automatically. Don't lie. Listen, I know about you and Dawson, and I want to help. Why? Because I knew Eric Knightley, and I know what really happened to him. Pain. Throbbing, all-consuming pain is the first thing Jamie feels as consciousness begins to return to him. At first, only fragments of reality. The cold concrete floor beneath his cheek, the smell of damp and chlorine, distant muffled sounds. Then his memory helpfully fills in the last bits. The cell door opening in the middle of the night, Martinez with two masked men, a blow to the head. He tries to open his eyes, but finds that one eyelid is stuck shut with blood. His other eye struggles to focus on his surroundings. A small room with no windows, bare concrete walls, and a metal door. A utility room? A staff room? He can't tell where he is. Finally awake. Martinez's voice makes Jamie flinch. The officer is standing in the corner, leaning against the wall, slowly twirling a knife in his hands. I was starting to worry that we'd gone too far. Where am I? Jamie croaks, trying to sit up and discovering that his hands are tied behind his back with a plastic clamp. In the basement of the administration building, an old ventilation system that was decommissioned 5 years ago. Martinez comes closer, leaning over. No one ever comes here. You can scream all you want. No one will hear you. What do you want? For starters, information. What exactly did Dawson tell you about Holden and the drugs? Jamie is silent, thinking feverishly. If they haven't killed him yet, they must want something. Time is his only chance. He didn't tell me anything, he finally replies. Benson just threatened me. Martinez shakes his head with feigned disappointment. Don't lie. We know what you said about Holden. The guard heard you. Okay? Michael said Holden knew about Benson's business, but he didn't give any details. Martinez smiles, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. See? That's better. Now for the big question, where's the diary? What diary? Don't play dumb. Your diary, where you wrote down everything that happened between you and Dawson. The one that disappeared from your cell. I don't know, it was stolen. Martinez takes a step forward and without warning kicks him in the ribs. Jamie doubles over in pain, gasping for air. Last chance. Martinez's voice sounds almost bored. Where? The diary. I don't have it, Jamie manages to say through the pain. Martinez sighs, like a disappointed teacher. Too bad. I thought we could work something out. He signals to someone outside the door and two masked men enter the room. The same ones who were in his cell. One of them is holding a bundle. Since we don't have the diary, we'll have to do things differently, Martinez says, unwrapping the bundle. Inside is a sharpened object, similar to the one Michael used to kill Benson. Do you know what this is? Jamie remains silent, feeling fear rise like a cold wave up his spine. It's a murder weapon, the same one used to kill Diego Ortiz tonight. And guess whose fingerprints will be on it? I didn't kill Diego. Jamie tries to move away, but his back hits the wall. Of course not. But who's going to believe a convict with a history of drug dealing against the word of a respected officer? Martinez steps closer. Unfortunately, you attacked Diego in a fit of jealousy over rumors of his relationship with Dawson, and you killed him. I had to use force to arrest you. You won't get away with this. Jamie desperately searches for a way out, but realizes he has almost no chance. You already have. Martinez raises the knife. Nothing personal, Warren. Just business. At that moment, the door bursts open. Standing in the doorway is Dr. Stein with a gun in his hand and two officers with their weapons at the ready. Drop your weapon, Martinez, one of the officers commands. Hands behind your head. Martinez freezes for a second, assessing the situation, then turns abruptly and, with surprising speed for his build, rushes toward Jamie, pressing the knife to his throat. Back off, or he's dead! Martinez yells, using Jamie as a shield. Don't make this any harder, says Stein calmly, keeping his gun pointed. Diego is alive. He was just interrogated. He told us everything about you, about Holden, about the drugs. The game is over. You're lying, hisses Martinez, but there is uncertainty in his voice. We know about the meeting with the suppliers on Friday. We know about the offshore accounts. We know about Knightley's death. Stein continues, taking a small step forward. Drop the gun. This is your only chance to make a deal with the investigation. Jamie feels the blade ease slightly on his neck. Martinez hesitates. At that moment, Jamie jerks his head back, hitting Martinez in the nose with the back of his head. The grip loosens enough for him to break free. A shot rings out. Martinez falls, clutching his shoulder. The officers immediately pounce on him, twisting his arms behind his back. Are you okay? Stein approaches Jamie, helping him to his feet. I'll live, he replies, rubbing his wrists, freed from the plastic cuffs. What happened? How did you know where I was? Your cellmate Parker saw you being taken away. He told Officer Ramirez, and she contacted me. Stein explains, examining the wound on Jamie's head. We were lucky that Martinez decided to question you before getting rid of the witness. Is Diego really alive? Yes, but he's seriously injured. He was found in the shower block C with multiple stab wounds. He'll survive, but he's already given a statement against Martinez and Holden. Jamie tries to process the information, but his head is spinning from the pain and shock. Who hurt him? Stein exchanges glances with one of the officers. We were hoping you could help us with this. Diego was conscious for only a few minutes and kept repeating one name, Michael. 5 hours later. Jamie is sitting in the infirmary where his wounds have been treated and the cut on his head has been stitched up. Next to him is Officer Ramirez, who has just finished taking his official statement against Martinez. Do you think Michael really attacked Diego? Jamie asks when they are relatively alone. Ramirez sighs. I don't know. He was in solitary confinement, but he has friends among the prisoners. And he had a motive. Diego was one of the men who killed Eric and one of those who threatened you. But why now? Why not before? Maybe he found out something new. Or maybe an opportunity presented itself. Ramirez glances at his watch. Dawson should be brought in for questioning in 20 minutes. Do you want to be there? Unofficially, of course. Jamie nods. He has to know the truth. In the interrogation room, Michael sits at a table, his hands cuffed to a metal ring on the tabletop. He looks calm, almost detached. Through a one-way mirror, Jamie and Ramirez watch as Stein and the district attorney's investigator enter the room. Mr. Dawson, begins the investigator, who introduces himself as Keegan. Do you know why you've been called in for questioning? I assume it's because of the attack on Diego Ortiz, Michael replies calmly. Do you admit your involvement? I didn't say that. Diego Ortiz named you before he lost consciousness. Maybe he wanted you to think that. Keegan opens a folder of documents. You had a motive. Ortiz threatened Jamie Warren, with whom you have a close relationship. He was also involved in the death of Eric Knightley, with whom you also had a relationship. That's not proof. You had no alibi at the time of the attack. Between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m., you didn't respond to a check in the holding cell. I was asleep. Checks are conducted every half hour in the holding cell. Michael shrugs. So the officer wasn't persistent enough. The interrogation continues, but Michael does not admit his guilt and does not give any specific answers. At one point, Stein asks for a break and leaves the room. He won't crack, he tells Jamie and Ramirez. But we found evidence, blood-stained clothing in a ventilation shaft near where Diego was found, and there are fingerprints on it that most likely belong to Michael. Maybe they planted them? Jamie suggests. Martinez and Holden could have staged the whole thing. Possibly. But for now, we only have facts, Stein says, looking at Jamie sympathetically. Can you talk to him? Maybe he'll tell you the truth. Jamie hesitates, but then nods. He needs to know. When he enters the interrogation room, Michael looks up, his face reflecting a whole range of emotions. Surprise, relief, fear. Jamie, are you okay? His gaze lingers on the bandage on Jamie's head. More or less, Jamie sits down opposite him. Martinez and his men tried to kill me, but Stein intervened in time. Thank God. Michael relaxes noticeably. I heard they took you out of your cell last night. I was afraid that... Michael, Jamie interrupts him. I need to know the truth. Did you attack Diego? Michael stares at him for a long time, then looks down at his handcuffed hands. What if I did? Would it change anything? For me? No. But for you, it would change everything. Another murder, Michael. Life without parole. He deserved it. Michael's voice hardens. You know what he did to Eric. You know what he planned to do to you. I know. But that doesn't give you the right. It does! Michael raises his voice, then immediately lowers it to a whisper. The system doesn't work, Jamie. Eric is dead, and no one has been punished. Benson was just a symptom of the disease, not the cause. As long as people like Diego, Holden, and Martinez are alive, they'll keep doing it. Someone had to stop it. And that someone is you? Who else? Michael looks him straight in the eye. I have no regrets. Not about Benson or Diego. They would have killed you without a second thought. Jamie feels a chill run down his spine. Sitting in front of him is a man he knew, a man he loved. But now he sees something new in him, something frightening. You knew all along that Diego killed Eric? I suspected it, but I only became certain recently when I heard him bragging about it to his friends. I was waiting for the right moment. And you used my translation as a diversion, Jamie realizes, just like Benson's attack. It was a lucky coincidence. Michael smiles slightly, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. I knew I'd be isolated after Benson's murder, and my friend who works at the laundry helped me arrange a meeting with Diego. Do you even realize what you've done? Now they'll never let you out. I understand, Michael nods, and I accept the consequences, but you'll be safe. And Eric, he finally got justice. The conversation is interrupted when Stein and Keegan enter the room. They've heard enough. Michael Dawson, do you admit your guilt in the assault on Diego Ortiz with intent to kill? Keegan asks formally. Michael looks at Jamie again, then shifts his gaze to the investigator. Yes, I admit my guilt. 6 months later, the Riverdale County Courthouse is packed to capacity with journalists, relatives of the victims, and members of the public. The case of corruption in the prison and the murders connected to it has become a sensation not only locally but also nationally. Jamie sits in the back row, trying not to attract attention. He has already given all the necessary testimony and is now present at the sentencing as an observer. In the case of corruption and drug trafficking, the court finds the defendant Frank Holden guilty and sentences him to 25 years in prison without the right to parole for the first 15 years, the judge announces. Holden, who has aged 10 years during the investigation, stands motionless, his face stony. In the case of the murder of Eric Knightley, the court finds the defendant Diego Ortiz guilty and sentences him to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Diego, still pale from his injuries, lowers his head. His family in the front row weeps. In the case of the murder of Eric Knightley and the attempted murder of Jamie Warren, the court finds the defendant, Luis Martinez, guilty and sentences him to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole for the first 25 years. And finally, the hardest moment. In the case of the murder of Richard Benson and the attempted murder of Diego Ortiz, the court finds the defendant Michael Dawson guilty and sentences him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Michael stands straight, looking somewhere above the heads of those present. When the guards approach to take him away, he suddenly turns and finds Jamie's eyes. For a moment their gazes meet, and Michael nods slightly, a farewell gesture, a sign that he accepts his fate. After the hearing, Jamie leaves the courthouse and takes a deep breath of fresh air. His own case has been reviewed in light of new evidence of corruption in Riverdale's law enforcement and judicial systems. His sentence has been reduced, his time in custody has been taken into account, and he has been released on his own recognizance. Mr. Warren, Stein's voice makes him turn around. The psychologist, now a former prison employee, looks tired but satisfied with the outcome. How are you? Fine, considering the circumstances, Jamie replies. You were right about Michael. In what way? You said he could be dangerously loyal. I didn't realize then how dangerous. Stein sighs. The system broke him, like it broke so many others, but unlike most, he decided to break the system in return. At what cost? Jamie asks bitterly. The highest, Stein says, putting his hand on Jamie's shoulder. But don't forget that his actions, however terrible, helped expose corruption that had been thriving for years. Sometimes it takes extreme measures to expose a festering sore. Philosophy is no consolation when the person you, Jamie, breaks off. Love? Stein finishes softly. Loved, Jamie corrects himself. Now I'm not sure I knew him at all. You knew him, just not everything. No one is made up of only light or only darkness. Michael protected those he loved in the only way he knew how. The tragedy is that it turned him into the very thing he fought against. Jamie nods, unable to find the words. Then, gathering his courage, he asks, will I be able to visit him in the prison where he's being transferred? I think so, but give yourself time, Jamie. Wounds, not just physical ones, need time to heal. They say goodbye. Jamie walks down the street, breathing in the scent of freedom that came at such a high price. In his pocket is a letter from Michael, passed on through his lawyer. He's not ready to read it yet. Maybe he'll never be ready. But life goes on. And somewhere ahead, perhaps, there will be a day when the memories of Riverdale Correctional Facility, of Michael, of everything he has been through, will not cause him such acute pain. A day when he will be able to move on, remembering not only the dark moments of their story, but also the bright ones. For now, it's one step at a time, one day at a time.